rushed through the ending a little bit last time. I just wanted to kind of go over it real quick to just kind of reiterate where we are, and then hopefully I'll have time to jump into the parables a little bit. I want to just go to, I think it's the second page in your, or third page, where it says chapters 10 through 11. If you guys want to open to that, towards the bottom of the first column. I just want to start with the, I think, verse 15, just almost at the bottom of the first column. It says, and whosoever shall be condemned and destroyed from henceforth shall be bound together with them. That is to say, the children of destruction, to the end of all generations, and destroy all the spirits of the reprobate and the children of the watchers, because they have wronged mankind. So, first thing to understand is that as much as the onus is on us, the book of Enoch puts a lot of it on the watchers, right? They are the ones who are leading us astray. They are the ones who are concocting all of this secular world as a substitute for the true reality that God is in power and He's in control. They've been given a certain amount of time, right? As we know, the scriptures speak about this as well. When they were at Gerasa or Gergasa or Gadara or whatever, and there were the demoniacs there, either one or two. And one or two demoniacs actually could just be representative of the age. I think, because in the book of Mark, right, it talks about how the spirits asked if he had come to destroy them before the time, right? So the demons also believe, right? They understand that there's a timetable here. Yeah. And so they understand where they are in time, and they're probably a little bit surprised that he's early, in their minds, right? But if we look at this of one age of 2,000 years, right, we can understand the symbolism. And that symbolism is underscored in Mark, when he was sent out into the swine, when the legion was sent out into the swine, and it mentions that there were about 2,000 of them, right? Which would indicate that there were 2,000 years left before the time, right? But this is where we're at. We're right at the end of that.
Yes.
So again, one age of 2,000 years, right? So they're just the same thing. There's no contradiction, right? But these bad guys or whatever, they rely upon deception. They rely upon illusion. They rely upon confusing us and dividing us and substituting truth with plausible lies and things like that we would buy into. So all of that is about to come to an end, because they have wronged mankind. It says, destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and let every evil work come to an end. Oh, sorry, it's page 3, starting with chapters 10 through 11, bottom of the first column. And it says, and the plant of righteousness and truth shall appear. And again, this is what we're talking about. Mysteries are going to be revealed, right? Remember the Ark of the Covenant, for example, there were 3 things. There was, the tables of the law, right? Then there was the rod that budded, right? And it bore fruit. Right, and that was a twofold aspect. So there's a transformation here with the second item in this box of covenants, right? And then of course the third one being the jar of manna, right? Full of manna, right? And again, I will give to you to eat of the hidden manna for overcoming. So that's a future testament. Remember, we went through the whole thing of there was what is, there was what was, and there was what is to come, and that's a stable pattern that you can see. But the Ark of the Covenant, again, you had an angel speaking in prophecy over here in prospect, facing one way, and then you had another one here speaking in retrospect, let's say, or representing retrospect in between the two, right, where the two things meet, where the end was at the beginning and all that. There was harmony, there was the Spirit, right, the presence of the Lord. So the idea is that there's going to be a transformation in that Middle Testament, right, that second one, where it's going to bear fruit, right? So it talks about the plant of righteousness and truth shall appear. So you'll have the fruit you'll have the leaves, right? And it says, and it will prove a blessing, and the works of righteousness and truth shall be planted in truth and joy forevermore, and then shall all the righteous escape. Remember, we were talking about how everything that we have is rooted in what's called the canon. The idea is that somebody has delineated that you have to stay within these bounds.
Right.
And there's this constant allusion to things outside of the canon all along the way, right? So, and in addition to that, we have more than just one canon. It's not even something that's universally agreed upon.
Right.
You know, the Catholics have theirs, and the Protestants have theirs.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
it's something of an illusion just on the face of it, because it can't all be right. So it's certainly not something that's delineated in the scriptures at all. So once this idea gets blown out of the water, right, then again, that's like escaping from a prison, right? This is why the prison aspect, you see like the spiritual aspect of what spiritual prison is in the scriptures. We talked about that when we first talked about the descensus and his going down into Hades, how it was a place of darkness, and how spiritually anyway, it represented our spiritual bondage, it represented our spiritual darkness, it represented our spiritual chains. And when the saints or whatever started undoing each other's chains or whatever, that was analogous to us with the knowledge of this, being able to free people from their spiritual and mental shackles, right? So there is a certain freedom that we get from destroying the illusion. And everything that they have rests upon that illusion. So in other words, when that's gone, they're gone. Okay, and so now then all the righteous shall escape and live until they beget thousands of children. Remember, he comes with 10,000s of his saints, right? So we are to beget them spiritually, right? And then again, living and death, right? Remember, life, like whoever comes to understand what I'm saying will not experience death, right?
Yes.
So in other words, to understand it spiritually is spiritual life, right? And then the scriptures say also to be carnally minded is death, right? So it's the same thing. They're in agreement. And it says, and all the days of their youth and their old age shall they complete in peace, right? Because they'll be done with all of this nonsense at that point, because they will have eyes to see and ears to hear, and they will level up and move on, right?
Hopefully for everyone,
Right.
hopefully.
Well, it will be for everybody, because the whole thing is everything that they said is untenable. And so it's all been planted. In other words, it's been put into the earth, right? I mean, if this is the earth,
But there
right?
are those that continually refuse to believe, so
I mean, don't get me wrong, but it does. Truth doesn't go through them if people start snapping out of it, right? And once you stop trusting that source, once you stop, drinking from that fountain, so to speak. But what is the earth, right? I mean, if a seed is planted in the earth, right, it means it's sown into like earthly language. Because earth kind of means earthly, right?
Right.
And the heavens kind of means heavenly, right? So the idea is that this seed eventually, and nobody knows how this happens, right? Because it's without our knowledge, right? Right? But then, the day goes by and then it springs forth, right? And it bears fruit, right? So the idea is that the seed is sown in earthly terminology, which is what we've seen. And it's all kind of meant to be as a means of conveyance, because if what is spiritual is couched in what is earthly, eventually, if the Spirit intervenes and chooses to reveal it, then at that point the earthly can revert back to the spiritual, and so it's preserved. And Yeshua says something about this in the Gospel of Thomas. He says, that if the heavenly or if the earthly came into existence from the heavenly, that is a wonder, right? But if the Spirit came into being because of he says it in spirit and flesh. If the flesh came into being because of the Spirit, in other words, if the Spirit's up here,
Yes.
all right, if it came into being because of the Spirit, the fleshly level meaning, in other words,
Right.
right? If the flesh came into being because of the Spirit, right, that is a marvel. Because how do you take that which is heavenly and couch it in that which is earthly, right? But then he says, if the Spirit came forth from the flesh, that is a marvel of marvels. Right?
Wow.
Right? Because, again, couched in the flesh, revealed through the flesh, right? Goes from the upper to the lower, back to the upper again. So it's a marble here and it's a marble there, right? So it's just very simple and straightforward. But they all riff off of each other, and this is how you would live without a canon, because you'd be able to see what you couldn't see before. You'd be able to hear what you couldn't hear before, and you would be able to articulate what couldn't be articulated before. And so, in a lot of ways, who cares if you have face opposition? Because eventually it's going to become very polarized, those who accept it
Right,
and those
right.
who don't,
Yeah.
right? And you just pick your side. You know, eventually the judgment's going to come.
Yeah.
And it says, and then the whole earth shall be tilled in righteousness, and all shall be planted with trees and full of blessing, and all desirable trees shall be planted on it, and they shall plant vines, and in the vines which they plant therein shall yield wine in abundance. And as for all the seed that is sown thereon, the measure of it shall bear 1,000, and each measure of olive shall yield 10 presses of oil. And cleanse out the earth from all oppression, from all unrighteousness, and from all sin, and from all godlessness, and all uncleanness that is wrought upon the earth, destroy from off the earth, and the children of men shall become righteous. And all nations shall offer adoration and shall praise me. Because again, this is universal. The whole idea is that once you're able to reveal this stuff and articulate it, and just see it, and you're able to communicate it, then all of a sudden, like I said, all of the illusions disappear, and people, again, because you're given that which eye has not seen, what ear has not heard, right, what hand has not handled, right, and what has not entered into the heart of man, right? That's all these things. Nobody's ever considered this. Nobody's ever seen this before, right? And then they shall worship me, and the earth shall be cleansed from all defilement. Again, that which is earthly is a means of conveyance. It's not apart from the heavenly. It is integral to the plan of salvation. So it's a way of taking the earthly and raising it up to that which is heavenly, right? Okay, and it says, and the earth shall be cleansed from all defilement, and from all sin, and from all punishment, and from all torment, and I will never again send them upon it from generation to generation forever. And in those days I will open up the store chambers of blessing, right? Okay, so what do we know about metaphors? Right? That's a metaphor, right? Store chamber of blessing, right? It means that the term store chambers is used metaphorically, so it can refer to things in the metaphor, which comes in important later on in the book of Enoch when you see that there are store chambers of winds and store chambers of this and store chambers of that, right? It's important that you don't visualize that in the realm of the earthly, right? As if he's talking about something sort of fantastical, I mean, in terms of the earth, like in terms of concrete earthly things, because store chambers is used metaphorically, right? Store chambers of what? A blessing, right? So there's store chambers of winds, right? Do not be blown around by every wind of doctrine, right? Right? Again, another metaphor, right? So when you see store chambers of the winds, for example, you understand it as being store chambers of teachings, which is what we're seeing here, because that's all stored up in the scriptures, right? So the idea is to start kind of thinking a little bit outside of that box, right? So I didn't want to just blow over that. But
that's kind of, when you're reading the book of Enoch, it's kind of like one of the things that. So after you have the instant in the beginning of the Watchers, or the fallen Watchers, right? You have an order of angels that are called the Watchers, and some of them fall, and I guess the rest of them stay the Holy Watchers. And what they do, they corrupt mankind. They introduce the Nephilim, and then we have this great battle. You know, they torment people. People pray to God. Enoch's sent to prophesy, and then Enoch goes on this journey, right, through the time and space, and he sees that, you know, where all the snow is kept and where all the wind is kept, and it's like, well, this isn't scientific, you know. It's like,
yeah, but
you're saying that that's all metaphorical. It's a
yeah,
parable.
it says it's a parable. I mean, the first thing it says, the words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous. You know, and he opened up his mouth, and he opened up his mouth. Well, you know what I'm saying. It says in the first chapter here.
And uttered the parable.
Yeah.
Yes.
It says that it's a parable. It says,
He took up his parable.
yeah, he took
Yeah,
his
he took up
parable.
his parables.
concerning them, right? So you have to understand that the parables, and see, that's the other thing too. This is another touchstone because, you know, it all goes around on itself. The Book of Enoch uses the same parables as the canonical scriptures, so they're written the same way. So even for all the scholars out there and the skeptics out there, if you want to say that the Book of Enoch is, you know, 200, 300, 400 BC, whatever, spread, you know, the fact is they're using the same language. So, you know, they're on the same page.
Right.
So I'm going to jump from chapter 11 down to chapter 37 because all that other intervening stuff doesn't have as much to do with Judgment Day. It isn't as focused on Judgment Day. And I wanted to start with Judgment Day, then maybe move on to the Son of Man, and if there's interest, maybe move on to other things. I don't know. But anyway, but the clear thing is that we talked about, for example, how it was that Jude and in 2 Peter, for example, you know, worked together to provide a canonical scriptural defense of the Book of Enoch and to kind of crack that door open a little bit for Christians to accept it. Because if you're a believer, you have to stand on either you believe them or you don't, right? You either affirm them or you don't. You negate them or you affirm them. He says it the seventh Adam. Do you say that? You know, he says that he's a prophet. Do you say that? You know what I'm saying? Which side are you on, sort of in a de facto kind of way? If somebody wants to deny it, the Bible gives us instruction. If they want to be holy, let them be holy. If they want to be wicked, let them be wicked. Let the chips fall where they may. Just do your part. So this is the second vision which he saw, the vision of wisdom. So this is the second book, the book of the parables, which is called the vision of wisdom, or in other words, the words of wisdom, which Enoch the son of Jared, the son of Mahalalel, the son of Canaan, the son of Enos, the son of Seth, the son of Adam, saw. Right? So what's that? The seventh from Adam. And this is the beginning of the words of wisdom, which I lifted up my voice to speak. Okay, so voice has to do with whether you're hearing it on the earthly or the heavenly. Right? So again, the heavenly is couched in the earthly, and we've been taught the earthly. We understand that he physically walked the earth. Got it. We understand that he physically healed people's blindness, physically raised people. Nobody's even questioning that. That's just a simple matter of that's what happened. But it happened because it carried with it this heavenly significance. If he healed one man's eyes, it was because he was going to heal the eyes of mankind. If he raised one man from the dead, for example, it meant that he was raising mankind from the dead. So it was, you're just seeing it with an additional meaning, an additional understanding. So when he says he lifted up his voice, he means he's talking on this level, right? As opposed to this level. So he's talking parabolically instead of just earthly, right? So the idea is that you're kind of reading this as you go along, you're seeing a little bit more. And it says, and I lifted up my voice to speak to those who dwell on the earth. Again, we just talked about that. Those who dwell on the earth, those who think with the earthly thing. He's lifted up his voice to speak to them because he's speaking to them on two levels. And he says, hear ye men, right, of old time, right?
There it is.
There you go, old time, right? So when you read in Jude that this was spoken of before of old, right? Who's he referring to? He's referring to antediluvian, the pre-flood. Okay, so it would be better to speak than just to the people of antediluvian times, but how many people got on the ark with Noah? Just his family, right?
7 others.
You know? Like they had a choice. You know, but I mean, as far as everybody else, right, they didn't get on there apparently, and we're informed that Noah was a preacher of righteousness. So for all of his righteous preaching, you know, how many converts did he get? Apparently none. Right? So that's how bad the world was.
Just his family.
Right?
Seriously.
So
How
So
good
again,
was he?
and see ye that come after, right? After what? After the antediluvian world, right? Again, Peter says that prophets, right? Enoch was a prophet because he prophesied,
I guess the animals listened to Cain.
right? Well, I mean that's case in point. The animal's more righteous than the people.
Serious.
But anyway, so when Peter,
We got Baron and Rambo and Banjo love coming to the church. Doors open, they run
Okay.
inside.
so when Peter says that prophets of old spake as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. All right? You're getting this essentially from Enoch over here, Enoch, the chapter 37. So, okay, so it says, "Hear ye men of old time," antediluvian people, right? "And see ye that come after." In other words, all this stuff that I'm showing you sort of visually, stuff that you can kind of see with your spiritual eyes, eyes to see and ears to hear. "The words of the Holy One, which I will speak before the Lord of the spirits. It were better to declare them only to the men of old time," but again, they didn't listen, right? "But even from those that come after," right? That's those who, again, we just talked about those people, right? It says the whole earth will be tilled with righteousness and blah, 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 all that stuff that we just read. "In those days I will open the store chambers of blessing which are in the heaven," right? So he's still talking about that, right? It says, "But even those from those who come after, we will not withhold the beginning of wisdom." Okay, so this is the first thing, right? And even Peter agrees with this too, knowing this what? First. Right? Knowing this first. That prophets of old spake as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. Right? So first, in the beginning, right? First thing you gotta know. And you gotta understand why this is the first thing you gotta know, because this thing that opens the doors of your perception.
Peter
right?
has the key.
He has the key, that's
He's
right.
got the key.
Whatever he's bound on earth, he's put in an earthly terminology. People will
Right.
see in an earthly way, right? But whatever he looses in heaven will also be loosed on earth, right? So he's couched the heavenly in the earthly for us to be sort of blinded by it,
Didn't even clear.
meaning that no one could know or reasonably could have known or could have understood, especially with all this deception, kind of lays the groundwork for forgiveness, right? So these are the first steps. These are the first things. So this is like not what the many have found, right? But this is sort of the entrance. Peter talks about that too. If you get this, then the entrance will be open to you, right? We will not hold the beginning of wisdom. So that's the entrance. That's the narrow gate, right? To understand the first things. Till the present day, such wisdom has never been given by the Lord of the Spirit. So it's held back, right? Like the good wine is held back until the end, right? And as I have received according to my insight, right? Because remember, he lifted up his voice to speak to them. That is his insight, right? According to the good pleasure of the Lord of spirits, by whom the lot of eternal life has been given to me, right? Again, Enoch was translated. Didn't face that. So now 3 parables were imparted to me, and I lifted up my voice and recounted them to those who dwell on the earth. Right? Again, so there's the heavenly and the earthly. Okay, so those who dwell in the heavens, like you speak of in Revelation, are those who are animated by the heavenly level of understanding. You hear that voice. And those who dwell on the earth are those who have the earthly understanding, and they only know Yeshua in the flesh, right? Remember, he did come in the flesh. It says, when the congregation of the righteous shall appear, right? Again, we talked about that in the 7 churches, right? Remember we talked about the Church of Philadelphia, right? And how they had the crown, if you will, right? Just like the Smyrnians did, right? But this, of course, is at the end of time. So it says, when the congregation of the righteous shall appear, and the sinners shall be judged for their sins, and shall be driven from the face of the earth, right? Again, what does face mean, right? Like as in surface, right?
Oh, face, okay.
The face of the earth, right? And again, so surface of the earth would be those who read things sort of on the superficial and earthly level, right?
Yes.
So, in other words, this is their refuge. The refuge of the wicked is the surface level earthly meaning. That is their
Yes.
refuge.
Yes.
So when they're driven from the surface of the earth, that means that this no longer works for them.
Right.
They can't just teach you
the veil
earthly and
has been lifted.
superficial things anymore. They've lost the illusion has lost its power. The lie has lost its power, right? And it says, and then the righteous one shall appear before the eyes of the righteous, whose elect works hang upon the Lord of spirits, and light shall appear to the righteous and elect who dwell on the earth. So so they're in an earthly state, but then light's going to appear to them, right? So they're taken from among just regular mankind or whatever, and they're elevated, right? And it says, and then where will the resting, and light shall appear to the righteous and the elect who dwell on the earth. Okay, so in other words, they'll go from the earthly teaching to the light, right? So they'll be in the heavenly level. And then it asks a very rhetorical question, which we've already answered. Where then will be the dwelling of the sinners, right? They no longer have a refuge in their lie. They no longer have refuge in their falsehood, right? It says, and where the resting place of those who have denied the Lord of spirits, right? And again, it'd be good for them if they had not been born, right? He says that about Judas too. So Judas parallels with the type of person who has kept us in the dark. You see what I'm saying? So you see the connection there. When the secrets of the righteous shall be revealed, again, all of this stuff is sort of held in secret, right? All the secrets are contained in Christ, right? This is what the Bible teaches us, right? And the godless driven from the presence of the righteous and elect. Because again, you have no power over us. You have no ability to deceive us anymore. You've been voided of your power, and you've been denied your resting place, right? And from that time, those who possess the earth will no longer be powerful and exalted, right? Because they'll be seen through as frauds.
Yes.
And they will have lost their credibility entirely,
Yes.
right? And they shall not be able to behold the face of the holy, for the Lord of spirits has caused his light to appear on the face of the holy, righteous, and elect. So they'll be able to articulate this light. And again, the light on the face, we talked about how, like, Stephen, for example, had the face of the angel, right? The idea is that they're not conflicted, they're not earthly, they're literally living in another world. I mean, whether that manifests in terms of a visible light, a visible holiness, an appearance of an angel, that has yet to be, determined. But it shall happen in one way or the other. But it says, and then shall the kings and the mighty perish, and shall be given into the hands of the righteous and the holy, right? Remember, Thomas says, let him who has power renounce it. Right? Because we're going to see through the deception that everything that they have rests upon, right? So in other words, we are going to inherit their wealth. The wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just. We are going to inherit the authority because it has been given to us by God, right? And then they shall be given into our hands, not because of anything we've done, but because the idea is that that this battle has been fought for us. And again, the people who labored and laid these mysteries down for us, right? We have entered in upon their labors, right? We just happen to be, coming along and plowing, and all of a sudden we hit this treasure, right? It's just sort of happenstance. We weren't the ones who went and planted the thing. We just are the ones who dug it out of the ground, so to speak, unearthed it,
What you were saying,
right?
with the treasure.
And it says, and thenceforth none shall seek for themselves mercy from the Lord of Spirit, for their life is at an end. So I guess we'll just put a period right here. But again, you can see how their life is at an end, because everything they rest on has been undermined and destroyed.